is Adam Asnes, your host here. I have a couple of guests who I'll introduce to you in a moment. We're going to talk about various stakeholders and contributors to any localization enterprise. And we're going to talk about what they all want and balancing that or harmonizing what people want. So everybody gets what they want to be successful. All right, so briefly, I'm going to mention before I do instructions that there is a chat and a Q&A section within the Zoom interface. Please type your questions into the Q&A interface. We will take them at the end. If you're like me, it really works to write the questions down right away as opposed to thinking of them later, just because if you're like me, like I said, you'll think about that question and that's where your head will be at, or you'll forget the question later on. That's me. All right. So some brief introductions. We have as our special guest, Nat Goodyer, and he is with RWS Trados. He is one of those technical gee whiz guys who gets Trados Enterprise to work for all the customers. So he is business process analyst is the official title, but I think of him as, hey, Nate, can you make this work? And he does it. So that's my title for you, Nate.
Thanks.
Nat, sorry. Me, I'm not the star here, but I'm the CEO founder of Lingoport. And then Olivier runs our product development. If you've attended our webinars, you've seen plenty of Olivier in the past. But he's going to show some coordinated stuff between our localizer software and Nat's work with Trados Enterprise. But ultimately, we're going to be talking about our stakeholders. We'll go over developers, management, localization team, and translation partners, because they're all part of having a successful release or series of releases for global products. So first of all, let's think of the developers. They are, for localization team members, often difficult to please. It's very frequent to see friction between the developer teams and localization teams, and it really doesn't have to be that way. The fact is if a developer understands that localization gets a broader audience for the work that he or she does, they usually get kind of excited about it, actually. It's just the drudgery around localization that is a distraction, or the disconnectedness of it that I find when I talk to developers is something to overcome. So most developers only have a basic familiarity with localization. They often speak one or maybe two languages, and it's not like their thing. Just because somebody, for instance, you sometimes have developers who are born outside of whatever home country is, and they speak multiple languages, but they don't really think about it like a linguist does. The other thing is that increasingly we see developers following a design that they may not have made. So when it turns into the UI and they're coding it up, they're looking at something done in Figma and the like. So increasingly, localization and awareness needs to push even further upstream into development. I don't know that we'll have a chance to go into it, but you definitely want to link localization to, say, your Figma development and the like. But for a developer, some aspect of localization should be integrated with the work that they do. And that takes the form of various sprints, if they're using anything even agile-like, which most people are. And those deliverables for localization, they should be visible to the developer. It's important to remember that developers are used to showing their work in a pull request or even in a commit. When they complete a sprint, they often have to make a video of their work, not in every organization, but in a lot of them, they make a video of their work showing like, here's the function, here's how it works, I'm proving that it works. Not so for localization if it's happening in a separate kind of thing. They want automation. They're really used to automating. Remember, if you're still, using spreadsheets and having developers manually send files, it's not great. There's really no reason for that in this day and age with all of the tools and automation that are available. And finally, and I can't underestimate this, development teams don't want you to break the code. If, let's say, you're automating and you're automating a mistake, you are speeding up a problem and scaling that problem across. So you've got to have checks and balances in that are part of your automation. Otherwise, you could be creating a problem. Don't break the code is just a really important thing because that brings everybody to a stop until they can fix it. Now, management, there's an emphasis on ROI, and I just want to say that a lot of thought will go into, say, using this blue font or something like that, and it should, right? But you rarely see people have to justify that in terms of dollars. So it's a bone to pick that I have, that localization still has to justify itself with all kinds of dollars and cents. Be that as it may, you need to be able to understand what your costs are and then run it against your success in various markets. Repeatable success. So you need a system that works across your teams, whether you have one product with a bunch of developers or thousands of products. We definitely have clients in both of those departments. And your IT department will be all over security. Are you exposing your intellectual properties to potential problems? So essentially your source code to potential problems. And that often comes into play in pretty much every technologically oriented organization. You must, for the localization team, you're straddling in between all these people. I want to mention that I've never seen a localization team that wasn't understaffed. It's often you're outnumbered by like 100 to 1 in terms of other people speaking about in this presentation. It's a push to get localization awareness and response within your organization. And it's hard to predict localization cadence from software teams in particular that I'm speaking with. Frequently I'll hear that localization teams, I'll put in a plug before our technology, you're often just sort of told, hey, we're done, this is ready for localization, instead of having a window into what's coming and the IETN quality of what's coming as well. So it's not just what's in the TMS that you have to be aware of. It's what's actually in the software repositories where the development teams are doing their work. And again, many manual processes often. You see that particularly different teams will use different file formats, and those all need to be massaged and all that. And all of that can be automated, but it takes a little upfront work to get that done. And lastly, I don't want to forget the translators, LSPs and then translators down the line. Always pressed on cost, timing, being efficient. There's, of course, a lot of push on AI these days, but as localization experts, we know that AI has been around for us for a long time. NMT certainly is a form of AI. It's even being finally acknowledged. But now more than ever, people are saying, hey, we don't want to pay for this, which as the guardian of localization quality, the localization team really has to be take care of that. But anyway, LSPs, translators, small changes shouldn't need engineering time. I see that complaint among LSPs all the time. If they get a small continuous localization project, let's say it's 100 words, if they have to spend QA time on it, that's bad because that impacts their speed and obviously impacts the cost of that little episode. And translators, finally, they want to use a workbench they know and like. They don't necessarily want it to fit into whatever they're being shoved into. So with that, it's time to do a little show and tell in terms of technologies. I'm going to have Olivier go first. He'll show what's in there, how you can see into repositories, and then I'll let him take it from there. And then Nat is going to show the second part of that, which is let's focus on the actual translation event and managing that. So with that, Olivier, I'll unshare and let you share your screen.
All right, thank you, Adam. I should see my screen in a short while here. Let me know if you do see it.
Yes, I see it. Looks good.
Right, so on the left-hand side, we're seeing what developers, where they push their work. And their work typically is Java files or C# or whatever programming languages, and also files that need to be translated. They are called resource files. In this simple example, they are under a locales directory. They are already translated partially. And so what we're going to do is with Command Center, we're going to onboard this and get the process going. To do that, we need to know what is the URL. It's up there. It's highlighted up there. What are the locale codes in the repository? So EN, DE, and FR for English, German, and French. And then what is the type of file? That's pretty much it. Once you know that, you're going to create a project in the Command Center. And that project is going to be using Localizer in Command Center. To do that, you see that currently we have a few projects. Some of them have developer errors, some of them are clean, some of them are late for translation. Each one corresponds to a repository. You see the translation status right now is 35% for this one. It's 99% for this one, 100% for that one. You can run different processes. We're just going to add a new project here for this one that I was just talking about.
Olivier,
just add this.
Olivier, can you just mention what Command Center is? Because it's not a Lingoport product. It's something else.
Command Center is the user interface that aggregates two different products at Lingoport. One is Globalizer to detect issues in the code, and one is Localizer to enable automation of translation from the repository or other data sources, maybe databases, for example, or some other things, over to a TMS like RWS, Trados Enterprise. So those are the steps here that we're going to go through, 1, 2, 3, and those, it's going to go really quickly. So first is, what are your credentials to go there? Then what is the repository? You've seen that one over there. The branch is translation. You see that there, translation. At that point, we're cloning the repository and we're giving it a default name. The default name, I'm going to change that to something else like a webinar, for example, for today. And I want to keep translation. I may add a tag like demo, for example, and maybe RWS. And I'm going to add a localizer configuration to this. I'm going to use Trados Enterprise as the translation management system. So you notice that it was EN, not ENUS. I'm going to change that for the repository locale. I'm going to add 2 locales to start with. I'm going to add French and French for France. There are a number of locales. Those codes here come from Trados Enterprise. So we're using the Trados Enterprise code on this end, and we're using the repository code on the left side. I'm going to add German. And German here was the German from Germany, and it's just DE. So what you are seeing here is what we're doing with this here: German, English, French. That's it for the locales for now. We could add pseudo locale. We're going to do that later on. At that point, it's a JSON file that we saw that. And the way to do that is just to say it's a directory name followed by the files here. That's it. After that, you can just click next if you want. There are more things that you may want to check. But here, before finalizing things, you may want to say, okay, locales en translation is going to be translated into locales d translation.json for those locales. And that's what I want. So now that it's verified, I'm going to add Nathaniel here to the people who have access to this repository, maybe a couple of people. Create project, and that's it. It was that simple. So right now the project is created. It was called webinar, and the analysis has already been run. What you notice is that there's a red dot here. The red dot means that there are developer errors in the repository. I'm going to close this guy here. I'm just going to expand this to be better for viewers. And I'm 75% complete. The analysis has run 28 seconds ago, but I want to see this. What is going on here? So to do that, I see that the source locale is en. There are 2 target locales, 34 words, 15 source keys, meaning strings, 1 source file. It's going to Trados Enterprise, and there is 1 developer error. It's in red. It really calls for your attention here. And so I'm going to click here, and it's going to tell me, where do I have an error? I have an error that's a duplicate key. It's in translation.json at line 13. I can have more information by clicking here. But what I just want to do is click that go to line in source code, and it's going to tell me, well, on this line right here, drive, you have a duplicate key. So let's highlight this. I see that I have 2 drive. I have starting to drive and driver. Obviously, in the application, when you use the reference drive to show in your UI, you don't want to be wondering if it's going to be this one or that one, right? So there is an error from the developer. There needs to be unique keys in each one of the resource files. So for this purpose here, we're going to edit this file and change drive to drive in, for example. So remove the duplicate key, and that would be done by a developer. Commit the change. There it is. And now we're going to simply do that again. So let's see if that disappears. And I'm going to go back to Localizer here. There are 0 errors. It's gone. So it's that easy to detect errors. And if errors have been fixed, you see that it's correctly identified here. In terms of your total completion report, meaning what is the status of your translation, you can see for each locale, how many words have been translated, how many words need to be translated. Now, you may want a bit more visibility in terms of what are those unsent words, because you're about to send something and maybe you want to see what is about to be sent. So to do that, you click on strings, which is really showing to be sent by default, but you can show more things. So what needs to be sent are those starting to drive, which was the duplicate key, by the way, before that. Driver, aggressive drive, harsh braking, harsh cornering, and hello. Maybe starting to drive is not the right grammar that you want. Maybe you want something else. So you may want somebody to review that. Maybe driver, yeah, you're okay with that. Aggressive drive. Hello is not that great either. What happens is that you're marking things for either future reviews or to say, yeah, I reviewed those and I'm okay with that. I want to click here. It will tell me that CCadmin, which is who I am logged in here, has reviewed that on 3/28 at 10:19, which is my time in Colorado here. And it's saying, yep, I'm all good here. It's been reviewed. So you can tell who has reviewed this particular string here. If somebody comes in later on, you can say, I just want to see things that need to be reviewed. I'm going to click here, and maybe you have 100,000 strings. It's just going to show those 2 strings. Those need to be reviewed. Whomever, again, you can go to the source code if you are a developer. You can have more information here. But if you want to review it at that point, just click here. And that one maybe is fine, or maybe you want the developer and you can give that URL to the developer or ask the developer to go here and modify that hello to welcome or something. At that point, if I want to see the source that are reviewed, this one is reviewed. There we go. So very briefly here, what we've done is in a very short time, we've onboarded a new project that was partially translated from prior configurations, prior tooling. We've identified what needs to be sent for translation. We can see what is about to be sent or what has been fully translated previously, or what is outstanding in translation. So you can really decide what you want to see here. And depending on your selection, you will see different part of the strings that have been selected. I fully translated those that have been fully translated. If I go back and I want to say, let's me add more locales. Right now, I just have German and French, but maybe I want more locales. I'm just going to click Edit. I'm going to click Localizer Settings, Locale Settings, and at that point, I can either choose from another project that has a locales that I want, maybe this one here, for example. At that point, I just added Albanian and Polish from this one, or I can add by hand a new one like Norwegian, for example. So I want to add Norwegian here. I'm just going to go here. Book mode. Here we go. And I want MD for book mode. I'm going to save that. And so at that point, I have a new configuration. I can just run this. It's going to do that in 1 second. It's done already, by the way. And when I look at Localizer again, it's going to tell me that my percent complete is different. And I'm not at all translated in those new locales that I just created. If I want to send them to be translated to RWS, the Trados Enterprise configuration, I'm just going to click this. If I want to check if anything was translated, I can check that here. Typically, it's going to be all automated coming back from Trados Enterprise, but if I want to check, I can check here. Or a few more things, but that's the basic overview for what you can do really briefly in terms of onboarding, detecting errors. You can also add, if you want, pseudo locale. So for example, here, if I wanted to add a pseudo locale, I would just say pseudo locale, save. And when I run this, not only is it going to analyze the project, but then run pseudo locale. And by the way, it's already done. And if I go back here, I now have a pseudo locale that has been created for EO. And you're going to see the strings here that are in there. They are pseudo localized. That's it for me. I'm going to pass the hand over to Nathaniel for RWS.
I'm just going to interject that pseudo locale, what that does is it lets the developer see the impact of localization right away. They don't have to wait for the translation project to come back. You could do that with machine translation as well. Pseudo localization lets you make sure the character set is supported and you have expansion that might be needed in various target languages. Nat, your screen.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you again for that introduction. And the pseudo localization, really the key, I think, to software or smooth software localization is really falling in step with their sprint cycles. Early
You're breaking up. Whoops, we lost you. Oh, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
No worries.
You try sharing screen again.
Yeah. There we go. You're good.
Yeah, you can see my screen.
Yep.
So sorry about that. So yeah, so as I was saying, like you know, the key localization is really falling in step with their sprint cycles. And it might be happening again. My Zoom is quitting. All right.
You're back. You're there. You're just
Okay.
herky-jerky.
All right. So let's take a look at a quick demo job. I want to show you can sort of extend the visibility and the various processes that we can effectively offer through a
Nat, I'm going to suggest you turn off your video. That you know, maybe a little less bandwidth might help. We lost him totally. Olivier, is it just me or you lost him also?
Seeing Nathaniel, or actually I'm seeing it frozen, and the
Yeah,
screen is still showing for me.
okay.
You
He's
do you want to
coming
go
back.
over questions if there are questions before in terms of what we showed?
I'm sorry, folks. Every time I try and share, I seem to be, yeah, disconnecting, or Zoom seems to be dying on me. I may have to talk this through instead.
Nat, sorry,
Yeah.
Adam just offered that you just turn off your camera. Maybe it will
Sure.
be better, and try to share
Right.
your screen still, because this is important part.
Okay.
Looking good.
You're able to see it? I'm not getting an exception, so that's great. So yeah, so for the third time, falling in step with your sprint cycles. So it's really it's really important to have translation be a part of the development process, so that you catch problems early and you're not sort of surprised at the tail end of your development, causing delays to your product releases, so on and so forth. So taking advantage of the translation process and things like pseudo localization early on in your sprint cycles, so that you can sort of see if you need to make adjustments within your application to accommodate translation is really, really important. So by the end, you can deliver on time. So once the projects are delivered to Trados Enterprise, we can track and handle any variety of file types. We can even create custom file types for you specifically. And the reason to configure these file types is really so that we can handle things like maybe inline variables or things like this, things that might break the code if they were altered by a linguist, and we can protect them through our system. Additionally, we can add any kind of, again, pseudo localization, just like Lingoport. We can offer a variety of different services, whether it be a pure human translation or MT assisted translation. We can configure that within the system itself. By taking a look at one of these files, let's take a look, excuse me. At one of these files, we can open it up in our online editor that can be used by linguists and also reviewers, so that if you have internal SMEs that maybe speak the local dialect, they may want to do a final review and be a part of the translation process, we can certainly include them. The online editor is really meant for ease of use, while providing a full functional translation interface for the users. The users can make use of various linguistic assets throughout the entirety of the process. So we can set up things like terminology, translation memories, meaning previously approved translations, and even machine translation to enhance the offering and speed up the translation process. In terms of review, like I said, we can include external reviewers as part of that process who can leave comments on the translations in case anything needs to be corrected, maybe shortened or lengthened, depending on the actual use case. Apart from that, Trados Enterprise also comes with a no data connector that allows you to actually track at a very granular level and build dashboards, live dashboards through business intelligence tools, so that you can track the progress of your translations and things like total spend. So things like cost will be visible through these OData feeds, and you can check on the on-time delivery, total spend, how much leverage you're achieving across all the languages that you're asking for, but a full featured set of data reporting that allows you to really understand your spend within the translation space. We can also accommodate other LSPs. We can onboard other vendors to be a part of that process. We can also, if our language weaver neural MT or neural machine translation isn't your preferred technology, although we strongly suggest that you try it out. We also can accommodate other engines as well. So Microsoft engines, Google engines, ChatGPT, and the rest. We've also introduced a new feature within Trados recently that allows you to actually have a direct communication line with the production team, so that the production teams, if they have any like contextual questions, or clarification questions can do so directly through the portal itself, and sort of ease the communication between the requesters and the actual production teams themselves. Obviously, we have full versioning and we have a full task history so that it's easy to audit. If there are any quality concerns with the translation of your products, we can identify where that came into the process very easily. And as I mentioned just prior, we have full file versioning throughout the entirety of the process, so it's really quick to identify where those errant translations made their way into the process. So really a full-featured translation management system here that can really be expanded depending on your requirements. We can tailor the workflows to your specific needs. If you have multiple rounds of review, we can do that, but aligning with sprint cycles is something that we do very well with a system like Trados Enterprise, and really can be tailored to your specifications. With that, I'll hand it back to Adam, unless there are any outright questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna continue. Hold on a second. Okay. Share. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me get to the right screen. Sorry. And by the way, if people have questions, this is a good time to think of them and write them down. We also, by the way, have this this streaming on LinkedIn Live as well. All right, so in summary, we really have quite a bit of balance available for various teams. We have the developers getting everything they want. They don't have to manage files, and if there's something that's broken about the localization, that's being checked. You know, a missing curly bracket, we saw a string ID that was duplicated, which probably wouldn't break the code, but it would not necessarily make the right word show up in the right place. That's easily found and then directed as far as the correction, so it isn't like unknown what the error is or where to find the error or anything like that. Is very precise. The localization team can really scale over to many teams. Remember, to set up this continuous localization, they don't really need much from anybody. They just need the source path and then declare what locales they want and a couple of other settings that they can all handle without having to wait for somebody in IT or wait for somebody from the development department to say, hey, look here. All of that detection happens automatically once you know the path for the repositories. And the files are grabbed and everything. So that's pretty cool. You saw Olivier just quickly set up a project, and of course pseudo localization can be added so the developers can see the impact. You could do that with machine translation also returning right away, which then would get checked. Then we have the management team being able to report it accurately, what speed is, what costs are, and the like. And the translator team having a familiar project work environment that they can work with. Pretty much every translator knows what Trados is, and that's just very cool. And you've got the backing of RWS behind it. So the two environments really just almost become one within all the teams. All right, and with that, we're ready to take questions. I have a couple of questions that have come in through LinkedIn. One is that, okay, this is a good one. I have many projects. Do I have to review all strings manually? You saw Olivier did a little bit of a string review. That's something that's elective. And it's funny, before we developed that technology, we talked to a number of customers, and some were like, oh, this is awesome. You know, I really want to be able to review strings before they go out. And, you know, the need for that is fairly obvious. Like, why would you want to spend time translating something that isn't precise or isn't correct in the first place in its source? Now, many times in some organizations, the developers are not necessarily adding strings on their own. That's very well established in design, and other times it's not. So I would say that's a feature that's not necessarily for everybody, and so it's elective. You don't have to use it. We had, you know, kind of one team that we talked to, and they were like, well, I manage 70 products and it's changing all the time. I couldn't possibly review all strings. Great, you don't have to. But other teams were really pretty excited about that. All right. Other questions through the Zoom team that are coming up? Okay. Anything in chat? Okay, I have one more question that came out. Can you provide context to the translators? I'm going to guess that what you mean by that is a visual context. And the answer to that is yes. We didn't demonstrate that here, but we have a system by which context is automatically collected up front and can be passed as a comment into the TMS. That's kind of collected automatically. The developer doesn't really have to do much when they run their unit tests. That it's gathered automatically. The second aspect of that is there's some configuration involved in that, but once it's set up, it works pretty nicely. All right, other questions on kind of, okay. Kate, you have anything else coming in?
Nope, I don't.
Okay, with that, I'm going to let it go. If anybody has a question, let me know. Recordings will be sent out automatically. There's nothing you have to do. That'll come in the next few days or possibly early next week. Thank you for attending and sticking around through all of it. Olivier, Nat, thank you for your support and providing some pretty cool demos. All right, take care, and we'll see you next month. We're probably going to talk about accessibility. I have to get that all together again, but the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.